This guy ate the immortal fruit to become the strongest, but instead of gaining immortality, he was reincarnated. The story began in a sacred place where the legendary divine tree stood tall, its branches reaching toward the sky like ancient arms. There, a man named Gilphus stood with his body covered in blood, his breathing heavy and labored as he stared at the tree in awe. For generations, it had been told that a powerful divine dragon guarded this tree and its precious fruit, a fruit said to grant eternal immortality to whoever ate it. As Gilphus looked at the massive tree before him, he could barely believe that he had actually made it this far. He had faced countless dangers and overcome impossible odds, and in the end, he had even defeated the divine dragon that had protected the tree for centuries. Even though he still felt incredibly weak from the fierce battle, Gilphus forced himself to stand up straight, his eyes fixed on a spot high up in the tree's canopy. Then, suddenly, something in the tree began to glow with a soft, golden light. It was the fruit of immortality, hanging there like a small, perfect sun. A wave of disbelief washed over him as he realized he had truly reached his goal, and with trembling hands he climbed the tree's thick trunk and took the fruit from its branch. He held it for a moment, feeling its warm energy seep into his skin, before he began to eat it slowly, savoring each bite. In that moment, he knew that with the power of immortality, he would finally be able to fulfill his lifelong dream of pursuing the ultimate heights of martial arts, pushing his skills beyond anything anyone had ever achieved before. Many decades passed, and the scene shifted to the grand palace of the Dragon family, where all the members of the family had gathered in one room, their faces filled with sadness and worry. Gilphus, who had eaten the immortal fruit so long ago, was now the father of the family, and his first son, Gilliam, stood beside him with tears in his eyes, saying that he did not want to lose his father. Gilphus looked down at his son, his own heart heavy with regret, as he spent his last moments with the people he loved most in the world. He could not believe that the fruit he had eaten all those years ago had not granted him immortality at all. It had all been a lie, a cruel trick that had led him to believe he would live forever. Despite the pain of this realization, he tried to accept his fate calmly, telling his family that he had already lived a long and full life. But deep inside his heart, he knew the truth. He had not lived enough, and if he had been given more time, he would have finally been able to reach the ultimate peak of martial arts that he had worked so hard to achieve. As he took his final breath, Gilliam cried out in agony, his voice echoing through the quiet room. Then, in an instant, Gilphus woke up, and the first thing he noticed was that his body felt strange, light and small, as if he had been stripped of all his strength. He looked down at his hands and saw that they were the tiny, soft hands of a baby, and when he looked around, he recognized the wallpaper on the walls as the one from the annex of the Dragon family palace. Confusion flooded his mind as he wondered how a warrior of his caliber, someone who had reached the 10-star level in martial arts, could have become a baby without even realizing it, or who could have possibly done this to him. Then suddenly a memory surfaced in his mind. It must have been the work of the so-called immortal fruit he had eaten so many years ago. In that moment, he realized that the fruit's true effect was not immortality, but reincarnation. And even though he had never expected anything like this to happen, a feeling of joy and hope filled his heart. He looked around the room and saw that there were many other babies there with him, and he knew that he had been reborn into the Dragon family once again. Just then, a maid entered the room, carrying a tray with several bottles in her hands, ready to feed the babies. To Gilphus's surprise, she took out a small goblin from a cage beside the tray and began to feed it with one of the bottles. Almost immediately, the goblin's stomach started to glow with a bright, intense light, and before anyone could react, it suddenly exploded in a burst of energy. Gilphus watched in shock, his baby eyes wide with fear and confusion as the maid walked over to him and picked him up gently, holding a bottle out to his mouth. In that moment, he realized that whatever was in the bottle contained immense power, power that was far too strong for a baby's body to handle, and he knew he must not drink it. But despite his better judgment, his baby instincts took over, and he opened his mouth and began to drink. As soon as the liquid touched his tongue, he realized what it was. Ancient dragon blood, diluted down so that it could be given to the babies of the Dragon family. He remembered hearing about this process back when he was alive the first time, how the family would dilute the powerful dragon blood to make it safe for their newborns. Panic set in, and he tried to spit out the drink, just as the other babies in the room were instinctively doing. But then, a thought crossed his mind. This was an opportunity, a chance to absorb this incredible power, and maybe even surpass the strength he had possessed in his previous life. With that, he reached out his tiny hands and grabbed the bottle from the maid's grasp, bringing it to his mouth and drinking as fast as he could. The liquid disappeared from the bottle quickly, flowing into his small body in a rush, and as soon as he finished it, he began to feel an immense wave of pain wash over him, so strong that he could barely stand it. The one who was feeding him was shocked to see how quickly he drank the first bottle, and then he began absorbing the contents of the second one just as eagerly. Soon after, the ancient dragon soul that had been within the blood started to wander through the space around him, and in that moment, it suddenly caught sight of a divine dragon spirit nearby. The two powerful souls recognized each other immediately and began to merge together, and as their union was completed, a bright light explosion erupted in the room. Gilfus felt weak after fully absorbing both bottles of dragon blood, but he managed to stay conscious, and the other baby who had undergone the same ritual instinctively survived too. As infants, they got tired easily, and not long after the merging, Gilfus fell into a deep sleep. 7 years passed in the blink of an eye, and Gilfus had grown into a strong, capable kid. One day, he was seen lifting a huge rock using only his foot, then casually throwing it aside as if it weighed nothing at all before standing up with perfect ease. By this time, Gilfus had been given the name Zeke Dragon, and he owed his incredible strength to the ancient dragon soul that had merged with him. In this world, all living beings possessed a special kind of power, and the ancient dragon blood that the babies had drunk contained immense energy. Because of this, the infants who survived the ritual were blessed with far stronger bodies than ordinary people. Zeke, who had completely absorbed the dragon blood and also merged with the divine dragon power, became even more powerful than the others, though currently his strength was only at the 1-star level, and now he's gonna reach 4-star. In this land, the number of stars a person had directly reflected their power, and in his previous life, Zeke had achieved the unprecedented rank of 10 stars. He had been reborn as a legitimate son of the Dragon family, but his mother had already passed away, and his father had never once shown up to see him. While he was shocked to find himself reborn, he was even more stunned to discover that 1,000 years had passed since his previous life, and in this new era, it was a world of survival of the fittest. The ritual of feeding dragon blood to babies was known as the Dragon Trial, and only those who survived it were allowed to be educated as Dragon warriors. Suddenly, a maid approached him, and Zeke asked her why he had not yet received any combat training, explaining that while physical conditioning was important to him, he was already able to fight in his own way. He also asked if she had any information about the other children who had survived the Dragon Trial, but the maid remained silent. Frustrated, Zeke asked if that was all she could say, but she replied that she could not answer that question either. When he questioned whether his treatment was too harsh, she told him that she was only following orders. The maid herself was a 3-star warrior, so she would have been more than enough to teach him basic combat skills. Deciding not to waste any more time, Zeke headed for the nearby forest, and the maid simply ignored him as he left. The forest was beautiful, with tall trees and lush greenery, and Zeke soon found a poisonous plant that he knew would help with his training. It tasted terrible, but he ate it without hesitation, knowing it would strengthen his resistance to toxins. As he continued walking, he detected the presence of someone hiding nearby and called out, telling the person to come out if they had something to say. As he explored further, he also sensed a strange creature approaching, and when he looked up, he saw an anger boar, a beast that had not existed in his previous life. The boar noticed him immediately, let out a loud growl, and charged straight at him. Zeke felt a surge of excitement at the thought of fighting, and he easily dodged the boar's attack before preparing to strike. With a single punch, he sent the boar flying through the air, and he felt pleased to see just how strong he had become. He picked up the boar's body and continued on his way. Unknown to Zeke, a man had been watching him from the shadows, surprised by how easily he had defeated the boar and how quickly he had detected his presence. The man wondered why Zeke, who seemed to have no family to teach him, was so talented, and he thought that even if Zeke was illegitimate, a mistake in his observation, he must still be part of the head family's bloodline. With that thought, the man disappeared without a trace. When Zeke returned to his house, he noticed several powerful warriors waiting outside, 3 of them at the 4-star level and 1 at 5-star. He wondered what such skilled fighters were doing there, but he could tell they meant no harm, so he walked up and asked them their business. The warriors, who wore the L-Dragon family emblem, immediately stood straight, bowed to him, and explained that they had come to escort him to take an official power examination. Zeke was shocked by the news, especially since he had not been taught anything about the exam or the world's fighting techniques. Still, he invited them inside, and they began to talk peacefully about what the examination would entail.